Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 18 and 19 for the WMMA6 Developers Journal. I forgot to do Wednesday. I was busy with other stuff going on, but I'm here now. We're going to do this for Wednesday and Thursday's Developers Journal. We're deep enough now that every entry it just at this point gets us even further and further into how the game is to be expected. But the momentum hasn't slowed down, the energy hasn't dipped out, and let's dive in, shall we? We'll start things out with the announcement that came in on July 18th, 2026. On the Grey Dog Software's website, it says, "We are pleased to officially announce that the newest game in the WMMA franchise, World of Mixed Martial Arts 6, will be released by Grey Dog Software in September of 2026. Additionally, the ever popular Developers Journal begins today in order to reveal what new features and changes you can expect." Remember, this came out July 18th. Even though the Developers Journal actually started, I think it was July 22nd or something like that. July 27th. So it lied. But anyways, the public beta of WMMA6 will be released in late August or early September. For those unfamiliar with this, the public beta is free to play and offers a fully functional version of the game, but with a limit on how many months of in-game time you can play. This allows you to, quote, try before you buy, unquote, and gives us the opportunity to address any installation or gameplay issues before the game goes on sale. The price will be confirmed closer to the release date. But now we're going to go to the actual journal itself. Posted July 27th by Adam Ryland. This is what he had to say to it. "Welcome to the WMMA6 Developers Journal. For those who haven't been with us for previous versions, the purpose of the journal is to reveal all the new features and modifications that will appear within the game, so that way you know what to expect before release. There will be a new entry every weekday for the next 4 weeks. At this point, if you've been following along, you know this, and we're almost done with this. Once we get through Wednesday and Thursday's journal, we'll have one more day, and then we'll be going straight into the public beta, pretty much." Before we start with today's first entry, there is a FAQ that I already went into in a previous video and made a bunch of videos in regards to the rest of the developers journal so far. If you'd like to check those out as well. But let's get into Wednesday's developers journal first. First of all, I want to go to number 121, which is the AI retention upgrade. The logic governing on whether AI companies retain fighters has been upgraded so that they are less likely to cut highly ranked fighters if they've gone through a bad patch of results, particularly if the losses were to opponents who were also high within the rankings. This addresses one of the common complaints from previous games where the AI could end up cutting loose objectively good fighters in situations where in reality that wouldn't happen. I understand wanting to have realism, but it kind of also shook up the universes too. I understand wanting to have realism. I do, but I kind of liked having the shake up. Because in a couple of universes that I would play, there'd be guys like Alex Pereira who got cut from UFC all because he lost in the debut in his heavyweight bout. So it was a kind of cool shake up there. But I also understand wanting to have realism. And now for number 122, continuing on to the computer by popular request, the matchmaking in AI companies has been completely redone to address common complaints from previous games. It is now significantly faster and makes much heavier use of the ranking system to lead to more realistic results. It also has improved logic with regard to how it handles young up and coming talent and can be smarter about building them up over time. I think it's nice that this revamp is happening because there definitely would be a lot of times where shows would look kind of wacky for computer promotions. And it seems like it's getting a whole rework, which is kind of a crazy thing there, but if it works, then it works. So I'm not going to say too much else about that. Now heading into number 123, there's a new hype system. By request, the new hype system has been altered so that each company now has a limited supply of available slots based upon their current size. This means that players have to be more selective about who they choose to hype, which makes both the feature interesting and less exploitable, as it can't just be spammed like in previous versions. I never have used the hype system. I probably won't really end up using the hype system here as well. There's not really a need for it, in my opinion. I do understand why some people use it, though. If they want to build up certain fighters that they have for their promotion that they think will be a breakout star. But I don't really see the point in doing that, especially because it leads to a huge risk if they end up failing. But it's nice that a rework's being done about the new hype system too, because I know in a lot of previous games you could just hype pretty much your entire roster and call it a day. But now you have to be a little bit more careful about how you hype the roster. But number 124 is more realistic avatars. To bring the game in line with Total Extreme Wrestling and make the game a lot more realistic, the gamified quote unquote user talents system has been removed in favor of choosing the chosen avatar skills and abilities to have a more natural effect. In essence, increasing the role playing aspect, this has the added bonus of making new games quicker and easier as you don't have to fiddle around with the settings. Additionally, avatars are now mortal, again bringing the game in line with TEW, making it more realistic and removing the oddity of a character somehow being immortal. Like basically making the character seem like they're God or something. Bring in the conspiracy theorists, am I right, guys? Anyways, I kind of figured that this change was going to happen. I'm sure a lot of people did. But I knew this change was coming, especially the player-controlled characters now being immortal, not immortal. Excuse me, Jesus Christ. But I don't know. It definitely could be worse on what this update is specifically about. And I think it's great that it's happening for the most part, but it's again a feature that was pretty expected to happen. And now number 125, changing avatars. Following on from above, there is a section in the options menu that allows to quickly switch avatars without needing to go through the hassle of adding and removing players. This is identical to how it works in TW9, and it seems to be a popular addition to the game that should work equally as well in WMMA. So basically, what this means is that it's a lot more user friendly and is a lot more trustworthy, if that makes sense. I don't really know how else to explain it, but I think it'll be a nice addition, to say the least. And now we've got, for number 126, we've got cleanup options. A new tool has been added, which can either be triggered by the player in options or set to automatically happen annually, which removes irrelevant characters from the database. This can improve the long-term performance of the game by freeing up space and reducing data bloat. Irrelevant characters would be the low-level fighters who had no real impact on the game during their active career, meaning they didn't win any titles, have any significant fights, etc. And there's a full list of the criteria in-game. When they're removed, any fights they had in the past are retained. It doesn't create weird blank spots and old stuff. It just means that they exists only as a textual reference to that fighter's name with no profile or skills associated with them. That'll definitely help out for the larger databases too, especially like the real world databases. So I'm very excited for that. And I'm glad that we won't have to worry too much about figuring out how to fix a photo or how to remove and declutter some of the things that's been going on. But now it made things a lot easier for sure. But now number 127 says is a older returns feature. By popular request, the maximum age at which you can potentially talk a fighter out of retirement has been raised. This better simulates reality as old legends can still be brought back, which I think is a fair point, but either way, but now moving on to 128, which is escaping back control. A new option known as defensive move from back control has been added to the game engine to allow users to make escaping back control easier or harder if somebody so wishes. This was specifically requested by a couple of people who wanted to have better control of creating primarily submission-based BJJ experiences. Guess it would potentially give someone something else to do if they didn't know what they were doing heading into the fight or heading into this game. Either way, they don't really know what they're getting into, but a whole new stat, huh? Seems like there's a whole bunch of new stats coming around. But now we're going to move on to number 129, Sandbox Team Membership. The editor in the options menu can now be used to edit team membership in a sandbox manner. This was a popular request by people who wanted more control over the game world. And even if this wasn't a motorcycle song, as some people would say, I'd still be... I don't know what I'm saying anymore. That didn't even make sense. I think it'll be nice, though, to being able to be in control more, because as a wise person once said, but the more control a player has, the more likely you're able to reach an audience too. So this feature, we'll just have to wait and see what happens, but we've been down, you guys have been down some pretty rough paths, I know. So, but again, I don't know what I'm saying. Going into number 130, we've got preset team memberships. So fighters who are yet to debut can now be preset to start as a member of a specific team. They will then automatically, they will then automatically join the team when they make their debut into the game world, assuming the team is active naturally. This was a common request in the suggestions forum. I don't really have much to say about this feature either, other than the fact that it will be a kind of nice way to introduce some fighters who may already have joined a team. So, yeah, pretty cool stuff. But now we're getting into Thursdays Game Developers Journal, as we head into number 131, game engine editing. To bring the game in line with TEW, many of the values used by the game's finance engine can now be edited as part of the errors section. For example, a database maker could tweak wage demands, viewership levels, sponsorship income, and etc. to make them higher or lower than the default levels in order to make the database, the financial aspect of the game, either easier or more tough. As they're part of the eras section, this also means that the database maker can make these changes over time. For example, having the amount of sponsorship money, why did I say spaceship? Sponsorship money much lower during the early days of MMA, then starts to snowball as the sport gets more and more popular. I mean, you've seen what happens at the UFC shows sometimes. The crowd goes nuts about that kind of stuff. But number 132, we've got multiplayer switching to increase the friendliness. The active player in a multiplayer game can now switch whenever they like via a button on the side menu. This replaces the old style where the order was locked. W choice, but that's really all I have to say to it. Number 133 is a forced status change. By popular request, the in-game editor can now be used to alter the status of characters, or for example, forcing retirements or unretirements during a save game. This gives a, quote, sandbox, end quote, ability if they want it. Completely optional, it sounds like, which is pretty nice. It seems like a lot of this stuff is very optional, but at the same time feels very forced. But who knows? But yeah, coming up next is the number 134 global skill comparison. A popular addition to TEW9, WMMA6 will now feature the global skill comparison tool. This can be launched from any fighter's skill page and allows the user to get an analysis of how the fighter stacks up compared to any of the other fighters within the game world as a whole and in that fighter's specific weight class. This allows for people to see, for example, that a fighter is, quote, in the top 5 amongst heavyweights when it comes to punching power, end of quotes. But no, that was me yawning. But going now into number 135, rookie hirings. By request, large AI companies will now tend to pick up unproven rookies instead of letting them develop naturally with smaller promotions / on the regional circuit. This makes things a little bit more realistic and stops rookies from having their career derailed by being forced into fights against each other. when more experienced fighters were not ready for it, too. But but yeah, it's a pretty cool change there that's being added. And now for number 136, we've got name searching, as it has proved useful in Total Extreme Wrestling 9. WMMA6 now has the same searching upgrade that when a user searches for a piece of text, the game will not limit itself to just looking at names, but instead take into account of nicknames and biographies too. This makes it significantly easier to find a character, especially if you only remember partial details about them. But we might have found her, I'm not sure. She was with us yesterday. Why do I keep saying stuff that doesn't even make sense? But I guess it sort of makes sense, but not really. Moving on to number 137, morale and usage. To make the moral system deeper, fighters can now get boosts or penalties based on how they're used compared to their status. For example, a seemingly main eventer might get really annoyed if you drop them onto the preliminaries. This also feeds into improving the simulation aspect of matchmaking. So, I agree with this addition, and we'll add some competitive nature into cooking up cards and cooking up all sorts of different things. And now for number 138, we've got public holidays, which is more of a cosmetic thing. To add to the realism of the game, AI companies will avoid scheduling shows for major public holidays. This is mostly cosmetic, as it just means you won't have the immersion breaking aspect of seeing an English MMA company running a show on Christmas Day, for example. It does add some realism into. Oh goodness! It does add some realism into what is actually going into what will be happening within this game, and what will be happening in general with anybody, in my opinion. But I don't really have much else to say about the public holidays. And now we've got number 139, rookies on large local shows. By request, if all the small local shows have been disabled, then rookies will gain the ability to work large local shows. This prevents them from being, quote, frozen out of gaining valuable experience. This helps with smoother gameplay for those who prefer not to have smaller shows enabled either. Oh. But overall, it's a nice addition, and the local shows are about to get even more intense, as we'll see all sorts of different things going on with these local shows. But finally, we've got number 140, which is automatic Market value. Which is a clause that has been added to contracts. This allows fighters to automatically get pay rises if their base pay has fallen below their market value. This can make things easier for players as it keeps fighters happier and removes the need to be giving out regular raises / new deals who fighters who are rising quickly. I personally don't have a problem with this for the most part, but I do understand why some people have been wanting some sort of automation. But now it seems you're getting more than just automation within the car. It seems like there's some automation going other sides of the zoo as well. I don't know if that's for anybody else around the community on what the market value is, but who knows what we would do. Drive you crazy. Driving me crazy on all the different entries that have been going around. But that brings us to the end of day 18 and day 19, making a more reactive simulation than anything that came before it. And now we're heading into the final stretch. The next video is day 20, the last stop on this developer's journal ride. One more day of reveals, one more round of upgrades and features being announced. And peeking behind the curtain on what the journal wraps up, the final picture of WMMA6 will continue to rise up, but excuse me. It seems like I'm going to have a very good time with this game. I'll be trying that out probably when the public beta comes out, but I'm not really sure. And yeah, that's going to do it for this video. And if you enjoyed, hit the like button. And if you'd like to see more, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you don't miss an upcoming video. And that's going to be it from me. Stay sharp, stay focused, and remain the all-stars that you are. Peace out, everyone.